My family called me worthless halfway through dinner, not behind my back, not in a private argument, at the table, in front of 14 relatives. The strange part wasn't what my uncle said. It was the way my father smiled when he said it. And the even stranger part? 30 minutes later, a CEO walked through the restaurant doors, looked directly at me, and said my name like he'd been searching for me. That's when everyone at the table stopped eating, because suddenly, the story they'd been telling about me for years began to fall apart. And none of them knew the worst part yet, neither did I. I grew up being the family disappointment, at least that's what I was told. My older brother Daniel was the success story, straight A's athlete. Confident, the kind of person relatives bragged about before he even entered the room. Then there was me, quiet bookish, always working on something nobody understood. Every family gathering followed the same script. Someone would ask what I was doing. I'd answer. Then somebody would laugh. My father usually finished the job. "You know how she is," he'd say, always chasing ideas instead of reality. Everyone would chuckle. I learned to smile through it. What else was I supposed to do? The thing nobody knew was that I had sacrificed more for my family than anyone at that table. 3 years earlier, my mother had become seriously ill. Daniel moved across the country for a job. My father kept working. Guess who drove Mom to appointments? Guess who organized medications? Guess who stayed awake at 2 in the morning when she couldn't breathe? Me. For almost 18 months, my life revolved around keeping her comfortable. I missed promotions, turned down opportunities, postponed plans, not because anyone asked, because somebody had to do it. After she recovered, nobody talked about those months anymore. It was like they had never happened. The only thing people remembered was that Daniel had a prestigious title. And I didn't. Maybe that's why I agreed to attend that dinner. Part of me still wanted their approval. Part of me thought maybe this time would be different. I was wrong, very wrong. The dinner was supposed to celebrate my grandfather's birthday. A private room, long table, expensive restaurant, the kind of place where everyone pretends they're happier than they actually are. For the first hour, everything felt normal. Then my cousin asked a simple question. "So, what are you doing these days?" I should have known. The trap always started with that question. "I'm consulting," I said. Daniel laughed immediately. "Consulting?" A few relatives smiled. I ignored it. "Yeah." My uncle leaned forward. "For who?" I named a few companies. None of them recognized the names. That was enough. My father put down his glass. "Translation," he said. "Nobody wants to hire her permanently." The table erupted. Laughter, smirks, head shakes, the familiar routine. I felt heat rise into my face. But then my father kept going. And that's when things changed. "You spend your whole life helping people who don't appreciate it," he said. "You know why?" I looked at him. He smiled. "Because successful people create value." The room went silent. Then he added the sentence I still remember word for word. "Some people are just passengers." A pause. Then he pointed at me. "She's one of them." Nobody defended me. Not one person. My grandfather stared at his plate. My aunt looked away. Even Daniel seemed uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to stop it. "Would you have stayed?" Honestly, at that moment, I almost left. Then my phone vibrated. One email, unhunal sender subject line. "I need confirmation before tonight." I frowned. I didn't recognize the address. Before I could open it, Daniel reached across the table, still checking work emails. I locked the screen. "Just something I need to review. Must be important." His tone felt strange, almost nervous. For a second, I thought I imagined it. Then I noticed something else. When I mentioned the email, Daniel stopped smiling, just briefly, but long enough to matter, and that tiny reaction became the first clue. Because 20 minutes later, I discovered something that made no sense. Something connected to Daniel, something he absolutely did not want me to see. The waiter arrived carrying dessert menus. most of the family started talking again. I finally opened the email. My stomach dropped. The sender wasn't a stranger. I was an executive assistant from a company called North Star Dynamics, a company worth hundreds of millions. The email wasn't addressed to me by mistake. It specifically mentioned a project codename I recognized. Only 5 people knew that codename. I was one of them. The message read, "Mr. Warren would like confirmation that you'll attend the final discussion tonight. He insisted we contact you directly. Mr. Warren, the CEO." I stared at the screen. There had to be some misunderstanding. I hadn't spoken to him directly in months. Everything went through intermediaries. Why would he suddenly want confirmation? And why tonight? Before I could think further, Daniel's voice interrupted. "Something wrong?" I looked up. His eyes weren't on me. They were on my phone, watching, studying, waiting. I turned the screen over, no lie, because now I had questions. And Daniel seemed worried that I might find answers. Then another detail hit me. The project codename in the email belonged to an initiative I'd designed, a proposal that had disappeared 6 months earlier. At the time, I was told the company had rejected it. End of story. Or so I thought, yet here was a senior executive referencing it like it was still active, which meant somebody had lied. The question was who and why? I excused myself and walked toward the hallway. Halfway there, my phone rang. Private number. I answered, "Hello?" A woman spoke immediately. "Is this Ava?" "Yes. Please don't leave the restaurant." My pulse quickened. "Who is this?" "Executive office. Mr. Warren is already on his way." I stopped walking. "What?" "He specifically requested that you remain there." "Why?" Silence. He'd prefer to explain personally. The call ended, no explanation, just more questions. When I returned to the table, Daniel looked pale. That was new. Daniel never looked nervous. He was the confident one, the untouchable one, the family favorite. Yet now he kept checking his watch, checking the restaurant entrance, checking his phone. And for the first time in my life, I realized something unsettling. Daniel wasn't worried about me. He was worried about something else. Something connected to that project, something connected to the CEO. And whatever it was, it had started long before tonight. Much longer than I realized, because 10 minutes later, I overheard a conversation that changed everything and exposed the first crack in the story my family had believed for years. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I had gone to the hallway to clear my head. That's it. But as I passed the private lounge near the restaurant entrance, I heard Daniel's voice, low, urgent. Nothing like the confident tone he used around family. I told you not tonight." A pause then. "No, she doesn't know." I stopped walking. My heart started pounding. Another voice answered, too muffled to recognize. Daniel responded immediately. Then "Keep it that way." Silence, then footsteps. I moved before he could see me, back toward the dining room, back to my seat. My hands felt cold, because now I know 2 things. First, Daniel was hiding something. Second, whatever he was hiding involved me. The problem was that I still didn't know what. And every answer seemed to create a bigger question. Dinner continued. At least everyone pretended it did, but I couldn't focus. I kept replaying the conversation. She doesn't know. Don't know what? The missing proposal? The CEO? Something else entirely? Then another piece of the puzzle appeared. My grandfather quietly slid into the empty chair beside me. He rarely got involved in family conflicts. In fact, avoiding conflict was practically his superpower. But that night he looked uncomfortable, like he had something to say and wished he didn't. "Ava," his voice was barely above a whisper, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did Daniel ever contact you about that business proposal you made a few years ago?" I stared at him. "What proposal?" "The one you showed me." My stomach tightened. I knew exactly which one. The platform design. The same concept connected to the mysterious project codename. The one I believed had died years ago. No. My grandfather frowned. "That's strange." Why? He hesitated, then he reached into his jacket pocket. What I'm about to show you might upset you. Those words rarely lead anywhere good. He unfolded a yellowed piece of paper, a newspaper clipping. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw the photo, and my entire body went still. Daniel standing beside a group of executives, holding an innovation award. The article headline mentioned a product launch, a product built around an idea I recognized immediately. My idea, my proposal, my framework, my terminology, even the same market strategy, word for word. I felt sick. This article is almost 3 years old, I said. Grandfather nodded. I assumed you knew. I've never seen this. His expression changed, not surprising. Concern, real concern. Ava, Daniel told everyone you sold the idea to him. I blinked. What? He said you weren't interested in pursuing it. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I couldn't even process it, because that wasn't just a misunderstanding. That was a story, a very specific story. One designed to make his actions look legitimate, which meant Daniel had been preparing for questions long before tonight. The betrayal hadn't happened recently. It happened years ago, and somehow nobody had ever told me. Would you have confronted him immediately? I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something stopped me, because if Daniel had taken credit for the idea, there was still a bigger mystery. Why was the CEO suddenly looking for me now? Why, after all these years? I didn't have to wait long. 5 minutes later, another clue arrived. This one came from my aunt, completely by accident. She was scrolling through old photos on her phone, family vacations, birthdays, holiday gatherings, normal stuff. Then one image caught my attention, a conference badge. Partially visible in the background, Daniel's name, a date, and a location. I leaned closer. When was that? She smiled. Oh, that conference? Yeah, about 4 years ago. I think 4 years. That was impossible. The proposal didn't exist 4 years ago. I hadn't created it yet, not even close. I asked to see the photo again. This time I zoomed in. The date was clear, 4 years ago. The conference occurred 11 months before I developed the concept. I felt my pulse quicken, to melanin error, a major one. Daniel had claimed he was already developing the idea independently. Yet he had attended conferences presenting material that didn't exist until nearly a year later. His story couldn't be true. Not mathematically, not chronologically, not logically. And if one piece of his story was false, how many others were false too? I decided to test him, carefully. I waited until the conversation shifted. Then I looked across the table, Daniel. He glanced up. What? Do you remember that innovation conference in Chicago? His fork stopped moving, just for a second. But I saw it. Everyone else missed it. I didn't. Sure. When was that again? His answer came instantly, too instantly. 3 years ago. Wrong. I already knew that. I smiled. No, I think it was 4. His eyes narrowed. The room suddenly felt smaller. Then he shrugged. Maybe. Not exactly the response of someone who supposedly built an entire career around events connected to that project. I watched him carefully. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That told me more than any answer could, because innocent people usually defend themselves. Guilty people often avoid specifics. And Daniel was suddenly avoiding a lot. Then the villain struck again, not quietly, not indirectly, publicly, and it was the moment the entire family turned against me. A waiter entered the room, walked directly toward our table, and handed Daniel an envelope. Daniel opened it, read something, then smiled. A slow, satisfied smile, the kind I hadn't seen all evening. He stood, raised his glass, and tapped it gently. Everyone looked up. I wasn't planning to announce this tonight. The room brightened instantly. Family members loved announcements, especially Daniel's announcements. He held up a document. I'm being promoted. Cheers erupted. Applause. Congratulations. Phones came out. People stood. My father looked like he'd won the lottery. Then Daniel glanced toward me. And that's when he twisted the knife. Hard work pays off. More applause. Then he added, eventually, people have to decide whether they're building something or just watching others build it. The room fell into awkward laughter, directed at me. Agon. But this time it wasn't subtle. It wasn't implied. It was deliberate, targeted, calculated. Daniel wanted the entire family to compare us, the successful son, the worthless daughter, the builder, the passenger. Exactly the narrative they'd believed for years. And judging by the smiles around the room, it was working. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message, unwell sender. Only 6 words. Do not let him leave. Nothing else. No signature. No explanation. Just that. I stared at the screen, then at Daniel, then back at the message. My heartbeat accelerated because suddenly it felt like multiple people were involved. Not just me, not just Daniel. Others knew something. Others were watching. Others expected something to happen tonight. And whatever was coming, Daniel clearly didn't see it coming. Because he was too busy celebrating, too busy enjoying the attention, too busy believing he was untouchable. What he didn't realize was that his promotion announcement had triggered something. Something he couldn't control, something that would expose a secret far larger than stolen credit. A secret that explained why a CEO was driving across the city to find me personally. A secret that had been buried for years, and in less than 10 minutes. The first piece of it was about to walk through the front door. The restaurant doors opened. A man in a dark suit walked in with 2 executives behind him. The room went quiet. I recognized him immediately, Ethan Warren, CEO of North Star Dynamics. Daniel's smile vanished. Mr. Warren scanned the room, then pointed directly at me. There you are. Every head turned, mine included. He walked straight past Daniel, past my father, past everyone, and stopped beside my chair. I'm sorry it took us this long to find you. The room froze. What? Daniel blurted out. Mr. Warren looked at him. You never told her? The color drained from Daniel's face. That was the moment everything changed. 3 years earlier, Daniel hadn't simply taken credit for my proposal. He had submitted my entire project under his own name. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was that the company eventually discovered it. An internal review had uncovered emails, drafts, timestamps, and development records. Everything led back to me, not Daniel, me. The company had spent months investigating quietly, and tonight they had finalized their decision. Mr. Warren handed me a folder. Inside was an offer, executive partner, equity included. My hands shook. I couldn't even speak. Daniel stood up. This is ridiculous. Mr. Warren calmly replied, actually, Daniel, your promotion was revoked this afternoon. Silence. You built a career on work that wasn't yours. Daniel looked around the room for support. Nobody moved. For the first time in his life, confidence wasn't enough. Facts had arrived, and facts don't care about family stories. Then came the final twist. My father spoke. Ava, surely we can discuss this privately. That sentence revealed everything. Not an apology, not concerned control. He had always preferred the version of reality where Daniel succeeded and I stayed small, because that version was simpler, comfortable, predictable. But it wasn't true. And truth had finally walked into the room. Within weeks, Daniel resigned, not because I exposed him, because he kept lying after the evidence surfaced. Every attempt to save himself created another contradiction. Every contradiction uncovered another lie. His downfall wasn't caused by revenge, it was caused by arrogance. He believed nobody would ever check. Eventually, someone did. The strange thing is, the job offer wasn't the best part. The best part came later, when I stopped needing my family's approval. For years, I thought success would make them respect me. It didn't. Even after the truth came out, some relatives made excuses. Others avoided the topic entirely. And that's when I finally understood something. The goal was never proving my worth to people determined not to see it. The goal was recognizing it myself. I accepted the position, moved forward, built a life that had nothing to do with winning arguments at family dinners. And looking back, that's what freedom actually felt like. Not hearing an apology, not watching Daniel fail, not seeing shocked faces around a restaurant table. Freedom was realizing I didn't need any of it. The family called me worthless. The CEO said my name, but neither moment defined me. For years, I let other people tell me who I was. That dinner ended the day I stopped listening.